All right, test 1, 2. Let me know if the mic is working, the audio is good. Let me know if you're in the comment section. All right, test 1, 2. Let me know if the mic is working. Well, it looks like it's working. All right. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about the student loan forgiveness, just like you saw in the thumbnail and the video title. It should be working now. Let me know if it's working now, if the audio is working. Uh, I hope it's working. All right, so obviously on this channel, I talk a lot about, getting a finance degree, business degree, accounting. That's what I talk about on this channel. And I need to make clear that it is not to say that that is the only way you're gonna gain knowledge, but it is just like the economy or the economy that we live in, where you need a college degree in order to. It's kind of like a key that you have to have access to just certain opportunities, right? If you want to go work at Wall Street, you might need that 4 year degree. Does that mean that you're gonna learn a lot from having that degree? No, you're probably gonna learn a lot more outside of the degree, but that is just what you need. So we gotta work with what we have. So today I wanted to talk about the how President Joe Biden canceled student debt. Let me go ahead and minimize my screen so we can have some unknown things about it, because I was looking at this earlier and I was like, oh, these are things that I didn't know. So this is from whitehouse.gov, right? The actual White House website, where you're gonna have all the facts you need that are related to the bill, right? This is the fact sheet that talks about, President Biden announces student loan relief for borrowers who need it most, right? Keyword who need it most, because it's definitely not beneficial to everyone. Um, and just like we'll look at this like later on, but it's not beneficial to everyone. So it's like we need it most. I had some student loans when I graduated May of 2020, so I've had some student loans that were, federal student loans, not private. So I definitely get this. So this report here says that we'll find a good part here. I'm not gonna read all of this. So they claim that the typical undergraduate graduates with with nearly $25,000 in debt. I think it's way more on the based on the typical, because I went to a public university where I was able to. I even qualified for the Pell grant, right? But I had more than 25,000, and I know more people that had more than that, because a lot of people tend to stay in college for longer. That means you take more classes, they charge you way more money, and some people take degrees that take them longer, right? So they're getting more. It's like that's the typical thing that a lot of people do. I think $25,000 is under a statement of how much people graduate with in debt. I would say, like, if you go to a public university and you take maybe an extra year, something like that, you have a minor, you have double major. A lot of people like to double major, and they're using debt to do that, right? So it's way more than, I would say, at least like $30,000, like 30 to 35. Um, so this is a graph here that shows the cost of attending college and how it has like gone up. So here we have the cost of attending college, which is the public 4 year. So this is based on public universities, right? Because they're government funded. And if they are, then they can keep track of that data. So when you get those federal loans that are, that are going to help you go through school, those are given to public universities because they're government funded. So this data is government funded university. So if you go to a private university, this does not apply to you because the data is not public to the government. So here, this is a graph or a chart that shows a public four-year university cost, which is the bright orange or red line here. And you also have the maximum Pell Grant values, right? So the Pell Grant is essentially the government is going to give you money, right? And it's money that you don't have to pay back. So if you ever apply for a financial aid and you get like some loans, and then there's a Pell Grant in there where maybe it's like $500 or $1,000. I know when I was in college, I was getting like maybe $500, maybe $1,000 a different semester, but that's money that's not gonna be a loan. You don't have to pay that back, right? So this is the difference here. So the cost is gone up more than the grant that they were given. So you can see that in the beginning here, there was like a pretty decent difference between the two, right? But as you move over time, you can see that the cost of college, public university or college, is going up higher than the Pell Grant has been able to keep up. And this is the same thing with employment or like raises at job at an entry level job. If you have an entry level job, I'm telling you, it's gone up by, I think since like the 1980s, it's gone up by 200 to 230 something percent, right? That's how much raises have gone, like the salaries that you make. But then the college is gone up by almost like 1,000%, a little more than, I think it's 1,200% since the 1980s, something like that, by 2,000%. So if you go to college and your bet is to go ahead and get a job, you're gonna be under, like, you go to college for $200,000, the job pays you $70,000. Is that a good investment? That's a good question. But so moving on here, so they have this comparison. They have to do this obviously if they're doing something like this, and then they talk about there's $1.6 trillion and rising more than 45 million borrowers. So these are people that have government that get government funding when it comes to student loans. That means they go to public universities like state universities, right? Let's see here. All right. So this is kind of like an overview of the whole thing, but there's more than just what they presented on the news. Um, so one of the main goals was to provide targeted debt relief to address the financial harms of the pandemic, fulfilling the president's campaign commitment. So I think he promised this when he was campaigning, and also based on on the COVID thing that we had going on, there was a lot of you can think about the stimulus packages, the PPP loans, right? This is part of that. So this says that the Department of Education will provide up to $20,000 in debt cancellation to Pell Grant recipients with loans held by the Department of Education, and up to $10,000 in debt cancellation to non-Pell Grant recipients. So this is where it gets a little confusing. I was reading this earlier. I was like, I need to get on stream and do this. So if you receive a Pell Grant, right, before, like if you are applying for financial aid, the Pell Grant is given to people that are under, that don't make a certain amount of money, right? You're obviously not rich. You're not gonna be rich and receive the Pell Grant. You're not gonna do that. So there's people that receive it because they don't have enough income to afford college, so they get this Pell Grant that they don't have to pay back. But on top of that, they also get loans as well, right? So the Pell Grant said the tuition might be $5,000 for the semester, right? Just to make things simple, and you receive loans of $4,000. Those are the loans, but then you also get a Pell Grant for $1,000. You don't have to pay the $1,000 back, but you receive it because you need it, right? Because you're at a disadvantage economically and financially. So that's what it is. So they're saying that if you receive the Pell Grant, which says that when you went to college, your parents or whoever was paying for it or yourself, you weren't in a place to be able to afford all of it, or maybe for them to just give you all those loans 100%. So they give you a little Pell Grant. So it proves that you weren't in a good situation. So they're willing to forgive $20,000 if you're a recipient of that. But if you did not, the opposite of that is somebody that had just like the loans only. So your tuition is $5,000 and you get loans that are like, this is how it works in real life. You get loans that are from financial aid, like $6,000, right? let's say you give back you accept $5,000, give back $1,000, or most students like to keep that, right? Keep that to pay for the apartment, to keep that to have fun with it, to waste the money. They do that. That's what most students do. So the other side of that is someone who receives the money and they don't need it. It's all loans. So if you're that person, you're gonna get $10,000 removed. But if you had a Pell Grant, which proves that you were underprivileged financially and economically, then you get 20,000 removed. Um, and so those, but there's also other, stipulations that go here. So borrowers are eligible for this relief if their individual income is less than 125,000, or 250,000 if you're married to somebody else. No high income individual or high income household in the top 5% of incomes will benefit from this action. They have to say that, obviously, to ensure that smooth transition of repayment and prevent unnecessary defaults. The pause on federal student loans repayment will be extended one final time to December 31st. So this was always going to be extended to December 31st, but they did say that there's an income limit to it, right? So that's kind of like the the limits that come with things like this. There's a limit to who's going to be able to get this. Is everyone someone who's a millionaire? They just haven't paid their student loans simply because they were on pause, right? They don't have to pay those. So yeah, so you need to make less than that. So yeah, I know a bunch of consultants that are new. They went to top, target finance schools, which they racked up about $100,000 in student loans. They go to consulting, they make like 110. They get a little promotion, they get to 125, 130. I do that. So you still gotta pay it if you make more than 125K, which is like which kind of sucks for them. But at the same time, you're making a substantial amount of money compared to other people that aren't in that boat. A lot of people, like, to be realistic, a lot of people graduate from college, they make 50K, right? Or 47, I think that's the average or something like that. 47 to 50, that's realistic. You work in business, finance, 60K is realistic, right? You can obviously do more or maybe less, but 60K is realistic if you go work in finance and business. It's your first job ever. I'm not talking about investment banking or consulting. I'm being realistic where a lot of people are going to go to. Um, so another part of this was making the student loan system more manageable for current and future borrowers by cutting monthly payments in half for undergraduate loans. So the Department of Education is proposing a new income driven repayment plan that protects low income, blah, blah, blah. All this. They do a lot of writing. So this means that the average annual student loan payment would be lowered by more than $1,000, which is really good because I've never paid student loans. I have student loans that I have not paid because I graduated in May of 2020, when they canceled it. So it's been all canceled, or not delayed, I guess, like pushed back to this day since I graduated from college. So I've never had to repay it. I can afford to pay it all at once, but I just haven't had to do it because it's been delayed. They're gonna cancel it, so I'm gonna benefit from this. And I don't like this is not a political video. This is more like just looking at the logic of this. So essentially, they're gonna lower the monthly payments because I just learned that when you have student loans, you log into your provider, the government provider, whatever, like the website you gotta log into. It tells you how much you need to pay every month. It tells you the amount. You cannot negotiate that. I don't think you can negotiate that. But right now, they're trying to make it more feasible. Because if they said you pay $500 a month and you make like $1,000 a month, but you also got rent, you got bills, you got this and that, um, that's not gonna work out. So I think the things that people didn't know about, because the thing that's like people are posting on social media I saw it on Instagram at first. They post that they're gonna forgive $20,000 if you receive Pell grants. They're gonna forgive $10,000 if you didn't receive Pell, if you only had loans, federal loans, right? That's it. That's all they post. And you need to make less than $125,000 a year. That's all they post. But the other things here, I found this when I was doing my own research. Um, there's way more to the bill than just like what's being posted on social media. So here it said fixing the broken public service loan forgiveness program by proposing a rule that borrowers who have worked at a nonprofit, in the military, or in federal, state, tribal, and local government receive appropriate credit towards loan forgiveness. So I think this has been around for a long time, where if you work for the government, whether state or federal, after 20 years, I think that was the old thing, then you can apply for student loan forgiveness. So they get forgiven, like, it's a guaranteed thing. These improvements will build a temporary changes, da da da, da, this and that. They like to put these numbers in there, so it looks like a lot, but they're usually lying. They're usually lying anyways. But when they put numbers like that, all right. So I want to skip this here. I want to go to the important part here. So when it comes to providing targeted relief, so for this one, uh, let's see, department 20,000 hours. So this is what we just covered. They're gonna do 20,000. That's the maximum they're gonna forgive, and you need to make less than 125 if you're single, 250,000 if you're married, and if you receive the Pell Grant. Uh, so yeah, this is where the Pell Grant comes in. So if you received that your family made less than $60,000 a year, right? So if they made less than that, you received this when you applied to college. Because when you're applying to college, I know when I was using, it was my mother using her information to do that FAFSA, or the financial aid. That's what they were doing. And the other one is like the 10,000 if you didn't receive the Pell Grant. So they have a little graph here. It shows it's trying to prove that the Pell Grant recipients, they came from families that earned less than $60,000 or less, which is realistic, right? So 30%, or I mean 66% made $30,000 or less, and then 28% made from between 30 to 60. 7% made 60 and more, which is insane. Like, it's insane to just know that a lot of majority of, because a lot of people go to college now, or back in the day they were, and it's like 66% make $30,000, and that's the entire family. That's crazy. The numbers do not add 100 due to rounding. The Department of Education. That's the source. I mean, this seems like a pretty credible source, but I still wouldn't trust it blindly if they're putting numbers like, like, I don't know. This is too simplified for me. I'm used to looking at a lot of data, Microsoft Excel as an analyst, and I'm like, oh shit, this is too simplified. All right, so this is the important part here. So if all borrowers claim the relief, they are entitled to these actions. They're entitled to, and these actions will provide relief up to 43 million borrowers. Like, just imagine how the college system is a whole business. I want to show you something here. Uh, how do you net worth? I think it's net worth. I want to show you what's crazy here that a lot of people don't think about. Me mistyping because I'm not. No, 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 that's not it. Richest colleges. Okay, I'll show you something very interesting that people will not tell you. Uh, this is not on here. I think it's on Wikipedia. Right here. List of universities by number. Nah, no, not with the billionaire alumni. How much you're worth. Okay. Okay, so okay, cool. Let's see. There's a list here. Look at this. Harvard is worth $53 billion. That's revenue. Yale, $42 billion. It goes, these are in billions, billions of dollars. Here, billions, and that is revenue. And how much are they paying taxes? Close to zero. Look at this. They are worth billions of dollars because the whole system is just, it's a scam, right? I talk about college because I say that you need to go to college, get your degree. That's how you're gonna make it in finance, right? Does that mean you're gonna learn the most because you have a finance degree or business degree or accounting degree? No, you're not. It's just what it takes to make it. That is what's gonna open the door. It's the key to open the door. But you're gonna learn way more outside of school. but you need that degree because that's how they built the system that you need college in order to work in these certain environment fields. Obviously, when you work in like you're a doctor, these engineering, obviously you're gonna need school, but still, like it's just like these are businesses. They're just not in the business of education. It's in the business of making money. Look at these top university. What is it? No, I have a couple of friends from Vanderbilt University. $10 billion. You can even look at how some of these top companies are worth. Like Facebook, how much? Like $85 billion. I think it's the average. I don't know, something like that. And you go to this, Harvard is $50 billion. So close. Like, and that's insane. Like the education. Okay, so let's move on from that. So so the target for this, obviously, like I mentioned before, is gonna be the low to middle income borrowers because they put that limit that's like $125,000 a year. That is the limit, right? So if you obviously make more than that, you are in the top percentage of the U.S. earners, right? If you're doing that. So the Department of Education estimates that amongst borrowers who are no longer in school, 90% of will go this earning less than 75,000 a year. No individual making more than 125, 250. Okay, cool. They're gonna help borrowers of all ages. So 25. I think for this one, it's more like the younger people have a lot of debt. So if you even look at the arguments on social media, you have older people that are maybe 50, 40, 50, 55, pushing 60. And their argument is like, I paid my student loans for the past 10, 20 years. Why should yours just be forgiven? But then you have a lot of younger people that just graduated or graduated within the past 5, 6, 10 years, and now they're graduating, they're getting loans. They're like, well, we love it. So that's like where you kind of like where you have the disagreement where the older generation that's paid off their loans or they're on their last little stride of paying off the loans, they're crying about it because they paid all of that and it's just gonna get forgiven. um, you also have advanced racial equity. So by targeting borrowers with the highest economic need, the administration's actions are likely to help narrow the racial wealth gap. Black students are more likely to have to borrow for school, more likely to take out larger loans. Black borrowers, focus on black people, but that's I mean it's always the target. I mean it is realistic, but at the end of the day, it's about financial education, like right. That's what they don't teach in high school. So it's like what it's something that just happens over time. So it's like you're in high school, you don't learn about loans to take. Think about if you are in high school right now, or you graduated from high school, which I did, and I know a lot of people that did as well. There was no class that told me what loan to take. What is the interest rate? What interest rate to look for? Should I take a private loan or should I go federal? All they did was help me fill out the what they offered. 'Cause my parents did it, but what they offered was to fill out the FAFSA form. We have a workshop to help you fill the financial aid form. We have a workshop to help you figure out where to get loans. That's what they did. But the classes do not teach you what loans to take. So if you come from a community that does not have access to that information, what I had to do was I'm a person that likes to research to learn things. So outside of school, I had a computer at home. I went and looked up what is the federal student like what is financial aid? How much can I get? What is the interest rate? Does the interest compound? These are things I was looking at when I was in high school before I even applied for college. Does this how long do I have to pay this? Is this gonna be a certain amount every month? Like how long do I have to graduate first and paid? Can I pay it while I'm in college? These are things you don't think about because they just tell you need to apply for financial aid. That's like if you need it. So if you're that type of person, if you get $10,000, right? I've seen this. People get, let's say the tuition is like $6,000, but then financial aid determines, it's the system determines that you need $10,000. That's what they're gonna send you. $10,000. Now it's up to you to decide if you wanna only accept the $6,000 that you need or accept the whole thing. A lot of people accept the whole $10,000. That's what happens. They use it to pay for their apartment if they're living off campus. They use it to pay for their car. They use it to party. They use it as just money, like for just spending, like for in things they like doing. But they don't realize that you have to pay this back, and there's an interest rate attached to this, and there's a fixed amount you gotta pay once you graduate from college, and you have to pay all of it back, and then the interest rate compound, and they just double. You can never seem to catch up. It's gonna take you, like a decade or so to pay that off, unless you make a ridiculous amount of money once you graduate. So a lot of people are in a lot of debt, and I think the black community or underprivileged community, I think they just target for black borrowers. I think it's the same thing in any other minority community like Hispanic, black, in any, maybe any other that I'm forgetting and not mentioning right now. I think it's prevalent in that it's more visible in those communities. It's not just the black community. It's a lot of people that I went to school on the south side of San Antonio, which is predominantly Hispanic, which is like and if you look at you look at holistically, it is an area in San Antonio that does not have privileges like that, that does not have access to information like that, right? I ended up going up to a different school later on, but it's not just the black community. I don't like, yes, this is a true statement, but at the same time, it's like, okay, do you have to use that as your platform? Because it's a lot of other people than black people that are underprivileged, that are in communities that, you know, need, they don't have the access to information, right, or technology in order to access that information. So here, there's another chart here. It says that nearly 90% of debt cancellation benefits will go to borrowers earning less than $75,000 a year, which I think is very true. A lot of people, the average income, I don't think it's over 50K for the average American. You have like your finance bros that go into Wall Street, that go into investment banking, that go into consulting, that go into being financial analysts, and really, 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 really like important banks and the corporations and things like that are they're kind of like the rare people that go and make $100,000 a year, like right after college with no actual work experience. But they have a chart that shows here that 87% of the people that are gonna receive this cancellation earn less than $75,000 a year. I think this is pretty realistic. And 13% is 75 to 125. I think this is very realistic because you do have those people that go into fields like finance, or I don't even know if doctors are able to make over 100 grand their first year or something like that. I don't know. Or engineers, I don't know if they're able to do that. But if you go into finance, then yeah, that's a possibility. And then obviously 0%. I don't even know why they put this on here. Why would you put this on a graph? You've already specified that if you make $125,000 a year, you're not part of this. And then why put this on a graph? This is bad. Whatever analyst did this, they need to get beat up. Not beat up, but like they need another lesson on how to create proper charts. Because this is irrelevant information. You need to put the 0%. Like you've already specified on your description. All right. So I think this one was really interesting because they say they want to make the student loan system more manageable for current and future borrowers, right? So they're fixing the loan repayment to lower monthly payments. So this is where I was like, I wasn't really knowledgeable about this, because I logged into my loans which I haven't paid, uh, only because they've been canceled for the longest. They've been pushed back, so I don't have to pay them. It's zero interest, but even though I can just pay them off right away, but it's just like it's just like something you don't have to pay. I use the money for something else, but this was interesting because I logged into it and it showed me that I owed like $200, 280 something dollars every month, and that's the amount that I have to pay every month, right? I don't know how they did it before, how they could come up with that amount. Can I afford it? They don't. I don't know if they know that, or I don't know what system they use. But here, they made it more. They explained a little more of what they're gonna do, right? So here, let's just go to the meat here. So it's for undergraduate loans, cut in half the amount that borrowers have to pay each month from 10 to 5%. So it makes sense now. So they were basing off of the 10% it's based off of your monthly income, right? You can make a salary of whatever, but it's based on your monthly income because loans have to be paid every month. So before it looks like it was 10% before, but now they put it down to 5%, right? So they cut it in half. So if you had to pay $200, now you pay half of that. That's the new, or that's what they're, what they're setting it to be. So raise the amount of income that is considered non-discretionary income, therefore is protected from repayment, guaranteeing that no that under okay, all of that. These are more specific, but basically what this is so these loans are based on non-discretionary income, right? So discretionary income is income that you need to spend on things like you want to pay rent, you want to pay car payments, things you need to survive. But non-discretionary is just like, okay, opposite that. So non-discretionary is income for rent and things you need to survive. Like think about if you're in finance, fixed costs. To run a business, you need to be able to rent a place. So you pay property taxes, you pay the rent. That's non-discretionary. But discretionary income is the money that you have after you pay for the fixed cost or fixed expenses. After you pay for that, now you have money. Now I can go party. I can go buy some alcohol. I can go get some whatever you're into that you don't need, but you want to do it because you have the extra money to do so. That's non-discretionary. So it looks like they are well, that's discretionary. They are increasing the amount of non-discretionary, which means that the limit that they had before is going to be increased. That means that you have to pay less anyways because they increased that limit. So your discretionary is less, and if they're charging from the discretionary, they can only charge a certain amount, which is going to be lower than what it used to be. Um, so here, this one is an interesting one. So forgive loan balances after 10 years of payments. So instead of 20 years, because before it used to be 20 years of payments, for borrowers with original loan balances of $12,000 or less, which is, this is where like, it sounds good to just say this first part, like forgive loan balances after 10 years of payments instead of 20 years. This is good. But then you go on to for balances for borrowers with balances with original loan balances of 12,000 or less. What what college student has only $12,000? It costs more than that. It costs more than that. So 9 times out of 10, you are gonna have more than $12,000. You're gonna have more than that in loans. So this is kind of like it sounds good only if you read like the highlighted part and then you read instead of 20 years. Oh, it went from 20 years to 10 years, but you don't read this little tangent they put in here. $12,000 or less. Nobody has that. It's like probably like 10 people or like 10 like less than 1%, less than 1% of the population that has $12,000 in student loans. If you went to a college for 4 or 5 years, you only have $12,000 in student loans. There's no way. Uh, so the Department of Education estimates that this reform will allow the community college borrowers to be debt free within 10 years. So this is true. This part here, okay, this is true. So they're kind of like making a sandwich argument here, right? You have something that makes you happy here, right? And then you go into here like, the hell? Nobody says 12,000 only. And then they end it with like, oh, that's if you're in community college, you won't probably benefit you more than anybody else. But a lot of people that go to community colleges, they do it for 2 years and they go to a 4-year university, right? They save money, obviously. But once they go to that college, it's not gonna be no 12,000. Colleges cost like 5, 6,000 a semester. Like public universities. I'm not even talking about the top tier ones. I'm talking about like it's a public regular 5, 6,000 a semester. You're taking 5 classes, more than that. So 12,000 is 1 year of college. You take 2 years, upwards of 25,000 dollars. That's how you are. So this is not really helpful having this in here. It sounds good, yeah, it sounds really good, but in the middle here, this is where it really breaks it down. Um, so cover the borrower's unpaid monthly interest, so that the unlike other existing income-driven repayment plans, no borrower's loan is balance will grow as long as they make their monthly payments, even if the monthly payment is zero because their income is low. So this is very interesting. They want to cover interest. That is how they make money off of these loans, right? It's interest. You see I think like one of them loans like 6%, 5%, something like that. They have like a fixed interest rate that they can change based on inflation and things like that. Um, but at the same time, it's like you have like when you take these student loans, You have like one that has like fixed loan. They have like different names. One is a fixed interest. One is like a variable that can change, based on economic things that are happening in the economy. So you have the Fed rising interest rates. That means they got to do something with that. But so here, this is very interesting. So they want to cover the borrower's unpaid monthly interest, right? So this is based on how much you're required to pay, that 5% of your monthly non-discretionary income, right? Or was it non-discretionary? I keep confusing myself with that. Okay, so they want to cover that, which is very, very interesting because how are they gonna make money off of a loan? Is it just the repayment itself? Because like think about it, this is a whole business. That's why I showed you the chart of Harvard being worth $50 billion. All these colleges they are over the billion-dollar mark, and it's a whole business system. It's a horrible system, but that is what we have. So you have to be able to work with it. Um, So now they have like some facts here. So these reforms would simplify loan repayment and deliver significant savings in low, middle, da da da. So a typical construction worker is making $38,000 a year with a construction management credential would pay only $31 a month, right? So they're trying to make it more realistic, right? Where compared to the 147. So this is really beneficial to people that did that. But at the same time, this is a very, for the lack of a better term, stupid observation because a lot of people that work in construction, if you've been around construction people, you know that some of them get paid in cash for the most part, unless you get to that management level where you are, you have to be on payroll, right? You have to have, it has to be like a digital footprint of you getting paid your salary and you pay your taxes. But most people that work on the lower level construction, that's not like management, they get paid in cash, and it's usually a lot of money that they get paid. I'm pretty sure it's more than $38,000 a year. I used to have a friend in college who worked in construction only in summers, and he made a lot of money. He was driving supercars based off of the money he made in the summer, but he was getting paid cash. So this is a very, for the lack of a better term, stupid stat to use construction workers because if you understand the construction business, you know that a lot of people get paid in cash doing that, right? It's usually a lot of illegal immigrants that might work in construction because it's an easy job for you to get paid in cash. You might even not, no, you don't have to be an illegal immigrant, be just a regular American, and you get paid in cash. So this is a very, whatever analysts came up with that stat to use construction workers as an example to put here. This is very unrealistic and very false information, really. A typical single public teacher, excuse me, with an undergraduate degree making $44,000 a year would pay only $56 a month on their loans compared to 197. Da, da, da. So this is more realistic here, right? Because a lot of teachers are underpaid, which I think is unfair because teachers create, the millionaires. They create the guaranteed they went through school. Maybe even like the high school teachers, they shape your mind. Think about how the economy. They just think about how our society is set up, right? Your parents have to go to work, both of them, for the most part, right? In general, they have to. They don't leave you at home by yourself. You go to school, and school is created to be from 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., whatever, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. That is when the parents are working. When they get off of work, that's when school ends. So now they're home. So you have a teacher programming your mind, teaching you, like those are the people that shape your minds at a super young age. So I think they should be paid more. Teachers should be the ones making six figures or something like that, right? But they make this average of like $44,000. Isn't that insane? So now, like this is more realistic here. So I like this here where they only pay $56 a month instead of the 197. I think it makes a really big difference. A typical nurse making $77 a year who was married to two kids would pay only 61 a month. Da da da. All this nurses work make. I don't know. Let me not speak on that because I don't know exactly how much they make, but I think I don't know. That makes sense if you can making paying $61 a month because that's required. You cannot say I want to pay 50. No, no, no. Before it was like you gotta pay the 295 coming out of your paycheck, regardless of how you feel. Uh, but yeah, the only one I didn't like here is like the construction worker example. This is very unrealistic and very leans towards the false information part of things. So these reforms, there's another chart here, will there's another chart here that says these reforms would simplify loan repayment and deliver significant savings to low and middle income borrowers. So you have like these stats, which is what we just covered up here. They're just summarizing it in a chart. I think they should have showed the chart first in order. Yeah. What else do we have here? I don't want to read all of this. Protecting borrowers and taxpayers from steep increases in college costs. So you can see that, let me show you a chart here that you probably never seen before. I think it's versus. So versus, let's say, what is it? Income, I think. Median income. This is what you always need to base your things off of, median income. So there's a chart here that you probably never seen before. Percentage change in college costs and earnings for young workers. So right here is the average earnings over since 1980. This is college costs since 1980. You can see how this has gone up dramatically. Look at the difference in where we're at right now. I think this was in 2020. I think that's the when this data was collected. Look at that. Look at the difference. How college tuition goes up by more than double, and you still have your wages really, they barely moved up. So it's a whole business. That's why you are able to see data like this here. They're making colleges are they make billions of dollars off of your money or our money, because I went to colleges, wanted to pay for that. Like, this is insane. Just looking at this chart here, like, how is this even possible? For how are these prices? How are these, like, college prices not regulated like that? How can they just charge just so much money? But anyhow, so yeah, I think it's good for them to protect that. They go into detail here, explaining exactly what they're gonna do in order to regulate the colleges from doing that. So let's see some of the things here. So while providing this relief to low and middle income borrowers, the president is focused on keeping college costs under control. Like how? Okay. Under this administration, students have had more money in their pockets to pay for. Okay, so this is very misleading because this administration started when the COVID, we're in a pandemic, right? So we had the money, we had the stimulus checks, we had the student payments canceled, like delayed, and things like that. So I don't think you can take credit for that, really. Like, what would you have done in a normal economy? It would have just happened like it always does. The president signed on the largest increase to maximum Pell Grant over the decade, $40 million to colleges and universities through American Rescue Plan, much of which, all this and that. Actually, this was actually really good because I think my university got it as well was doing the pandemic. No, it was a different one. But they gave some money to universities that the university gave to students. Additionally, the Department of Education has already taken significant steps to strengthen accountability so that students are not left with mountains of debt with little payoff. The agency has reestablished the enforcement unit in fact, the department. This is a whole lot of nothing they're saying here. Which others? For worst for profit scandals. And I know initially he canceled debt for schools that turned out to be scams, and people went there, they owed money. That was canceled like earlier this month or last month, this year. Uh, yeah, this is a whole lot of nothing here, but it doesn't say anything how they're gonna regulate how colleges increase tuition every year or every couple of years, right? They increase tuition and it's unregulated, and it's only because the federal government is willing to give out these loans that have insane like little interest, and sometimes financial aid doesn't even cover you. You have to go to private loans. This is not even covering private loans that you might have gotten because you didn't afford to have you weren't within the income limit to receive financial aid from the government, so you take additional private loans which have insane interest rates. They gotta do something about that. But all in all, excuse me, I don't like to be political on this, but this is really good for people that are that make less than what they identified here. But it's also unfair to people that make more because I might have a consulting job that's willing to pay me $110,000 a year, but I went to a target finance school that that cost me $200,000 a year, or for the 4 years that I was in that school, $200,000 a year. So now, if you really break it down to the percentage of how much you gotta pay back, it's no difference from someone who went to a school that cost them $50,000 a year and they make $30,000 a year, right? You can kind of like, I'm not saying that's like the exact estimation of both parties, but it's like it's perspective based, but I see what he's trying to do here, what they're trying to do here. Obviously, this is gonna benefit majority of people because not majority of people make more than 125K a year, especially if you just graduated from college. It's not a lot of people. That's just a reality of it. But so it's gonna benefit a lot of people, but it's also gonna piss off a lot of people that one that have already paid off their debt, right? That are like so, and then also what's gonna happen in the future, right? You forgive this the 10K right now. In the future, are you gonna forgive every 10K out of future students that graduate from college with debt like that? Are you going to? You know what college they're gonna do? They're gonna increase their tuition by 10K so they can recoup that or somehow, right? Because you don't have to pay this, or we can increase by this because the government is gonna cover this. So this seems like putting a band-aid on a without treating the wound, right? You just like, okay, let me cover this up, hoping that is gonna work, kicking the can down the road without an actual solution. Because this is seems like a temporary fix. Because a lot of people are like, I think midterm elections are coming soon too, so it might have something to do with that. I don't know, not to be political, but yes, it might have something to do with that, and also a lot of pressure. If you are on Instagram, you see like, Biden, when are you gonna forgive the student loans? You said you were gonna do this. You said you were gonna do this, but I mean, this is something, I guess, but I don't think this is a long-term solution because you have a lot of outrage from people that have already paid. You have some people that dedicate their income. They just graduate, they pay their bills, and they pay off their student loans because they want to get rid of them. People that have paid 90% of their student loans, but now it's like you never paid for your student loans, and they're gonna be forgiven $20,000, or 10 to 20,000 that's gonna be forgiven, and you didn't pay, and you don't even like. It's like you're gonna have people like that, but I think this is very beneficial to the people that are in a situation where they don't make that much money and they're living paycheck to paycheck. It's also not beneficial, or it doesn't give advantage to people that that make that much money, but they still owe a lot of money as well, right? And I think I was watching the president's press conference today. He was like, "I'm not gonna apologize for helping the working American, though the average working American, something like that." Which makes sense, but at the same time, like this is not a permanent solution because how is this gonna proceed? Like, how are universities gonna be checked in terms of can they not charge increased tuition randomly? Is there gonna be? Are you gonna force them to reduce their tuition by 50%, 30%? 20%, are they gonna be held to a certain standard? Like you cannot charge this much money, and at the same time, these loans, like I know they focus on the black community in this like little article, White House article, where it's like, oh, underprivileged black community, they're more likely to take double the loans. Now, what are you willing to do to make sure that they don't do that in the future? Because if you don't solve that problem, then they're gonna keep doing that, and then the solution you have it's not helpful because it is not going to the root cause of the problem, right? So, are you gonna provide financial education in high school? Are you gonna not let kids that are 18, 19 take big loans? Obviously, you're responsible for loans you take. You need to pay them back. But at the same time, if you want to go the moral route of using the black community as an example of people that take double the loans, right? That's kind of like if you want to take it logically, I'm an analyst. I look at data. That's what I look at. It's like you take a loan out, you pay it off. But then you go the moral route. It's like, okay, well, did you have enough knowledge? But then I go back to being an analyst. I'm like, then why'd you take it if you didn't know, right? So we can go back and forth on this. But what are they doing to address that from even happening to begin with? Right? What are they doing to address that? A college degree is not even worth it anymore. It's not. It's just a key that you can use to get into certain industries. In finance, do you have the capability to work in Wall Street without a finance degree? You might be the most intelligent person, analyst, you understand Excel, this and that, you have no 4 year degree. Or do you have a better advantage if you have a 4 year degree? You're not as smart as the person that does not have the 4 year degree. You're better off with the degree. Does that mean you're smarter? No, you might be dumber, but you have a degree because that is what it takes now. It's a key that opens doors, but it's not the way to education. Most of the times when you start a new job, you have to relearn things, and most people don't even work in fields that that their degrees in. Somebody's gonna have an art degree and be a finance work in finance. Someone's gonna have a finance degree and go work in being a teacher, something like that, middle school teacher, right? So people don't do that anymore. So the college degree is not really worth it anymore, but it's just a key. It's a status symbol. Like, you went to Harvard, great. And one of the great things about college, really, that I champion more than the education itself is the ability to network. So when you go to universities like Harvard, right, that is the whole point. It's not the education. Like the education you get at Harvard is the same education you're gonna get at a community college. Same. You think they hire smarter professors at Harvard? No. The professor that lectures at a community college is the professor that can lecture at Harvard, the same class, but it's the network. It's the prestige, perceived value that you gain from there. But what I think is really important is the networking that you have. Most billionaires, or a lot of them, went to Harvard. They dropped out of there. If you went there, that is like something you can connect with those people on, right? So it's the connections that you make, the networking part of that. And it's recognized if you went there. That's all networking. That's what it's good for. But the education, no, not worth it. Like you have to relearn everything on the job. But yeah, so that was my little rant on that. So I think they should have given everyone who went to college in the last 10 years 10K in tax credit. Yeah, that's a very good observation there. That's a very good point to make, that everyone that went to school on the past 10 years or 20, I don't know, whatever years they want to make it, you give them a 10K to 20K tax credit, so it's not only helping poor people. Yeah, because you're gonna have the rich people really upset at this, or people that make more money really upset, and it never works out well when another half of people is upset. But yeah, that's a really good solution to that, where you just say over the past this many years, um, you're gonna be get a tax credit of this. If you have loans, they'll be forgiven. If you've already paid them off, you get a tax credit, which means you get the money back, $10,000, right? But they don't want to make rich people richer. And what's like that's a good point to make, but at the same time, it's like, what are they gonna do for the future students? Do they force colleges to reduce tuition by 10K to 20K, or do they still keep forgiving later on based on income? Right? Like it's like a whole. This is just like a temporary solution, I believe. That's maybe the next president. If the next president is of the opposite party, might remove. Um, I think this is gonna be a thing that's gonna be there forever, because you have the opposite party not agreeing with forgiving certain loans for there's a lot of things when you start talking about politics that affect a lot of things that but this was very interesting. This is why I wanted to make a video, like, will be on live on this, because I think this was a very interesting thing for him to do, and the way it was structured to where it's 10K if you only have straight federal loans, but if you received a grant, which means you were more in need, you get 20K. So if somebody was only taking loans, they owe more than someone who had a grant. So why is someone who has a grant getting more canceled, 20,000 canceled, than me who only had loans for 10,000? So I think this was rushed. This was rushed. Like, it wasn't really thought through. Even the example they used of construction workers, like, that most construction workers aren't. They get paid cash under the table. They get paid under the table. So what's reported to the federal government, it's a few of those construction workers, right, that are making that 30,000 average they came up with. I think it was like 34,000 dollars average they came up with. That's what they came up with, but it's not. That's not realistic. If you understand how things work in the real world, that is not realistic. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for this live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm gonna go get some food, maybe some water. Um, But I'll catch you guys on the next one, which is probably tomorrow. We'll cover something else. I want to talk about some NFL